Now, like I said, I was working on the Hodge conjecture, which talks about smoothing between this or that for mapping and trajectory and stuff like that, right? Now, in regards, Hodge's conjecture, and the closest thing to solving it was one-to-one graph, right? So this is the one-to-one graph. Trying to map this, the complexity of this, to find a smoothing so you can understand it and use it to your full ability, right? You could understand this, right? But if you neglect everything else that's happening, you'll never truly get a true smoothing or understanding of this one-to-one, right? Because this one-to-one is being affected by all of these. Now, say, if you're trying to go from one-to-one and call this 1-to-2, right? This segment, you're trying to find a smoothing between this segment, but you don't understand why it's fucking warping. And it's because this binding between these causes it to warp. But if you're neglecting this from the entire equation, trying to find a smoothing between here and here, only using the understanding of this and the understanding of that and the bonds between them, you're always going to get the equation wrong because you're missing out on all these other extremities, even the ones in different dimensional planes. That's the problem with Hodge's conjecture. With finding an orbital path around any celestial body, that's the simplest way to explain it, I would imagine. Trying to find a Goldilocks zone so a satellite doesn't fall into a decaying orbit or end up slingshotting itself out of an orbit because the bonds aren't placed correctly, because you positioned it in the wrong spot, because you thought this is where it would be, because this is where the equation took you, because this was the smoothest route with least resistance, but with enough resistance to keep it in orbit. You neglected other factors, because even though there's a pattern to the celestial cycle, there's still invariance that you're not taking into account because you didn't fully understand the scope, the mass, the weight, the distortion ratio, the dampening forces, excitable forces, all that stuff. You didn't calculate all of it in because you don't have true measurements yet. So the orbit will always fall to decay. There will never be a true smoothing without actual measurement.